Alright class, so here's problem number 60 on page 731. Okay, you're given 3 points, A, B, and C. We're told to find the altitude, and that's part B, and then use that altitude, right, we'll call this A, use that altitude to find the area. And hopefully remember that the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. Okay, so this will be our base, and this will be our height. So we're going to use our formula here to get distance from this point right here, this point B, down to the line AC. So the first thing we need to do to use our formula is to find the standard form of the equation that goes through A and C. To do that, I'm going to just start with y equals mx plus b. And hopefully we remember that m is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 of any 2 points. The slope between them is going to be the second y value minus the first y value. And you can choose either of these points to be 0.1 or 0.2. It doesn't matter. Just for this problem, I'm going to choose this to be this part of the problem, this to be 0.2, this to be 0.1. So my y2 then is going to be negative 2. My y1 is 0. My x2 is 5. My x1 is 0. Maybe you can see why I chose those two. This to be 0.2 and this to be 0.1, this to be 0.2 and 0, 0 to be 0.1, because the math works out a little better. So we get negative 2/5 as our slope. Now we need to figure out what the b is. So in order to find b, you substitute in your m, and then you pick one of these 2 points to go in for y and x to solve for b. So the point I'm going to pick is obviously the easier one, 0, 0. And maybe even at this point, if you know that you're going through the point 0, 0, you already know what b is going to be, because b is the y-intercept when x is 0. So, but anyways, I'll go through the math here. So I'm going to put 2/5, negative 2/5 in for m. I'll rewrite it over here. So y equals negative 2/5 x plus b. And in fact, we want to put values in for x and y. We're going to put in 0 and 0. Now you can see that this is going to cancel off. So my b value also must be 0, because what plus 0 equals 0. So now we have the equation of our line. Y equals mx plus b. We just found, oh my goodness, mx plus b. We just found m to be negative 2/5. So we have y equals negative 2/5 x. And then in standard form, I'm just going to bring the x to the other side. So I get 2/5 x plus y equals 0. Now we know our a, our b, and our c. Alright, so I'm going to pause it there. I'm going to do the math, and then we'll come back with what this equals. So here's my calculation. I put, so here's the formula. Here's my A. Here's my x1 from point B. Here's my B value right here. This is my y1 from point B, and then my C value is 0. There's nothing here. Over the square root of 2/5 squared plus 1 squared. Okay, when I do that, if I do it by hand, I get 33 square roots of 29 over 29. If I use my calculator, this turns out to be about 6.13. Okay, so I'm going to store that value. I'm going to store this value in my calculator. Hopefully remember how to do that. Now what I need is the base. So I just found the height in my formula, base times height divided by 2. So now I need the base, the distance from this point to this point. Two ways to do that. I can draw a triangle. Yeah, it's going to link up here anyways. I'll just make it nicer and neater. I'll just exaggerate it. Right? This is point A at 0, 0. This is point C at 5, negative 2. The x distance is a 5. The y distance is negative 2. To find the distance between this point and this point, it's just Pythagorean's theorem. So 5 squared plus negative 2 squared, and then I'm going to take the square root of that. Okay, so that would be squared, 2 squared, take the square root. So it's the square root of 29. That's what it's going to be. And then now what do we got up here? So we have, this is what we had from before. Actually, if you went through the math, it's going to be 33 over the square root of 29. If you did it by hand, that's the height. Now we just found the base to be the square root of 29. And then multiply them, you end up with 33, and then divide that by 2, you get your 33 over 2, or, hey, or 16.5. So there's this problem. We also did this another way. Maybe I'll pause this and show that too here in a second. So all I did was put the formula in here. So if you've watched this video to the very end, there's the really easy way to find that formula. This is just your first point, your second point, your third point. Maybe you remember this, maybe you don't. But it's also, you can look in the book to find out how to do this too.